then I will call to order March 22nd, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Jeff Penzine,
Present.
Neil Blatland,
Here.
David Newbill,
Present.
Lynn Shank,
Yes, ma'am.
Jenny McKay,
Here.
Jim Christopher,
Here.
Angela Willis.
Here.
Let's move right to the approval of minutes from our last meeting on February 22. I guess I've reviewed, I don't know how detailed we get with our corrections, but I just had some type.
There was a correction made already to change the first paragraph from Commissioner Sevigny to Commissioner Penzine.
I wouldn't let that slip by.
That's already been done. So if there's typos, absolutely, let me know.
I guess just with regards to page 2, state electric site plan review, there's a reference to Blaine. No last name. Just would be clarify.
Yep.
Did he have a last name?
Lobostel.
And with that, I have no further suggestions.
I make a move that we approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2022.
A second. We have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 22nd Planning Commission meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Next item on the agenda. Communications and notice.
We got to approve the agenda first. Motion to approve the agenda.
My apologies.
Sorry, that's okay.
I move to approve the agenda for March 22nd, 2022 as written.
Second it.
So motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item next on the agenda, the Renaissance Festival update. Right?
Yes, being that there is an overwhelming response of people here, I would like to move that we do the Dixie overlay public hearing really quickly first. That way we can get that over with, and then the site plan, because that can be, those two things are super quick, right?
And then
They're gonna be a lot faster than what all this is out here, is what I'm saying.
so we'll go to the
No,
Dixie overlay public hearing.
that would be
section
great.
of the-
Yes, that would be great. Thank
of the
you.
agenda. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing aspect of the meeting.
I make a motion to open the public meeting for the Dixie overlay.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve the public hearing for the Dixie overlay. All those in favor
Aye.
and those opposed? Okay. So into the public hearing discussion, I guess, with regard to the last meeting, there was something pointed out, Michelle's here, there were some changes, I guess a few changes that we made to the Dixie Highway overlay concerning Big Sky Drive and then township property. Those were removed from the overlay, correct?
Correct.
I guess, Michelle, if you would want to address the substantive
Sure.
change.
Sure. So at our last meeting, we had talked about the benefit of removing Big Sky because there's very limited industrial space in the township. And so we removed those so that they could, continue as land uses without the extra set of design standards that really don't touch Dixie Highway and aren't generally applicable to industrial uses. And then secondly, we removed, what is it, Bob, like 80 or 90 acres? Yeah.
90 if you include neighbors.
Yeah, about 90 acres here where Grange Hall Grange Hall and Dixie, not quite intersect, but a little bit further down on Grange Hall. We removed those because those are township owned properties. And we are coming up with a new strategy for how to address land use there, which we'd like some more flexibility with. And I will be bringing those updates to you when we get to them. I have not yet written any new standards, but we wanted to remove those so that we could plan that area as kind of a unit. And so it's going to require some additional standards that will be different than what the Dixie Highway overlay is requiring. So these are the new boundaries. That's none of the narrative has changed in the writing that we've gone over several times. So really what you'd be approving tonight is a change to these boundaries. So anytime we change anything on a map or in the text, we have to have a public hearing, and that's all we're doing tonight is approving the new boundaries. And I can answer any questions you guys have.
Great. Does anybody have any questions or comments with regard to that?
And the new boundaries are already incorporated on this map as a proposal, or will there be a new map issue?
This is the
This is
boundary.
what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
This would be the latest.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
So your motion would be to recommend the trustees to approve, right? So they have to do the final approval for this.
I make a motion that we recommend to the township board and new Dixie Highway overlay, as it's been revised and revised and revised, and hopefully it'll be okay.
A second motion.
Roll call. So we take a roll call vote on that or just a?
We can. Want to do a roll call?
If you would.
Sure. Neil Lautland,
Yes.
David Newbill,
Yes.
Lynn Shank,
Yes, ma'am.
Jody McKay,
Yes.
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Angela Willis,
Yes.
Jeff Kunzine.
Yes. So moving on.
Motion carried. All in favor, motion carried.
Oh, thank you. All in favor, motion carried. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I forget those aspects of it. All right. Do we have to close the public hearing?
Yes.
But do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Usually you have to ask for some public comment.
Oh. Is there any comment from those in attendance with regard to the Dixie Highway overlay? Okay, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close public hearing.
Yes, highway overlay.
Second.
Neil, was that you?
Yes.
All those in, take a vote.
You can find it.
No, we can just say motion.
Motion carried and approved.
Yes.
Perfect.
We're supposed to be kicking me under the table. All those in favor of closing the public hearing aspect of the meeting?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried and approved. Okay, now on to new business on the agenda, site plan review for Sherlock Storage. Is there anybody in attendance tonight with regard to that item on the agenda?
Captain Williams, Keith Engineering.
Austin Hall. Okay, thank you for coming. I guess just on behalf of the commission, I reviewed the documentation. I see that it actually just passed Sherlock on the way down. It's zoned currently as I-1 light industrial. Just briefly, what does the business do? What is the purpose of the business?
It's a self-storage facility.
And if you can summarize the proposal or the recommendation for the project.
Well, they presently have 5 buildings, as you know, and they just want to, he's got a purchase. Under contract, we're purchasing the property, which is only the same to the south, to add another 5 buildings that we're showing there. One of them, the one in the front, is showing an office, which they do not have an existing storage building. So, it's just a very small office, a simple little bathroom, so that's what necessitates needing a small septic field as well. But that's the only purpose, just to have one person. And then, besides that, standards change, as everyone knows, and so we're showing preliminarily the required Old County Water Resource Commission 100 detention basin sizing. Many details to follow, as Tim's letter has pointed out. But basically, it's just going to be a building with asphalt lot and connecting to the other one, trying to use the same entrance there so we don't have another connection point onto the Dixie Highway. So that's, anything you want to add to that? Or we presently are in the stage of getting the wetlands flagged, early stages, so we don't have that detail of that yet. But we have a general idea where it is, but so all that's yes.
Okay. Just with regard to the planning
Mhm.
review, Rochelle, would you like to speak to that before we open it up for questions?
Yes, so as the applicant mentioned, there's 2 parcels, 2 adjacent parcels, and they own the triangular one and are hoping to purchase the one directly south of it. So what I did was assume that these 2 could be combined. So generally you have to, there are certain rules for a land division and land combination. So what I did first was look at those standards. These 2 properties can be combined. So I did the review assuming that they already were. Okay, so that step has yet to be finalized, but it was just so that I could do the correct setbacks and take into account things on this new parcel. So the main things that, and this for the applicant too, if you have questions for me, they're all listed on the very back. Once I go through all of the standards, once you get to section 5, it tells you what's outstanding still and what needs to be submitted to me. So one of the things that could not be calculated was parking on site, because that's based on how many employees you will have at your largest shift. So once I have that number, then I can calculate that and then see if you meet that standard or not. So I'm just going through on page 13 of 13 here, section 5, some of the things that we'll need to do in order to finalize. So we need to see what the buildings will look like. So we need elevations from the ground. We know what the building materials are. We know what the height is. Did I say I need to wait? We're good? Okay. And then we need to know if there's going to be a trash receptacle or exterior equipment. If so, where is it going to be located? The egress and ingress point is too narrow as it is. If it's going to be 2-way, I think it's too short by about 2 feet. And then lighting and sign details. So I would say that overall the use complies, most of all the setbacks and all of that are met. It makes sense to expand, this use to the adjacent parcel. There's just outstanding details that we still need, and so you can approve with conditions, which would be that these conditions are met, that more information is supplied to us or denied. So those are your options for this, but I would say from my perspective, these are often things that people are not submitting in their conceptual review because there are a lot of details and that the applicant and I can work on those. If you approve the conditions.
I have one question. Currently, you periodically have like mobile homes or trailers parked on it. Are you going to have more trailers on the new site, or are you just looking to be total storage?
The majority of it is storage building. There are approximately 14 outside parking sites.
For like RV. Inside, it'll be screened, it'll be further back, not right along the front. But that's what's shown on the plan.
And to be clear to the applicant that if you submit these things with the same general layout, then we can work this out administratively. If you have to redesign the whole thing in order to meet these standards, it would be like you were starting over and you'd have to come back to the commission.
Right. Okay. I did have only with your letter, is it okay for me to ask?
Yeah.
One question was on the parking that you pointed out. You know, there's nothing in the ordinance for the mini storage specifically. I know you were using warehouse,
Right.
but really the only thing that will require parking is the office, which we provided 3 spaces for that, because nobody parks anywhere, but they temporarily stop where they're loading or unloading, you know.
Right.
You know, about it. And then they're in and out. There's no parking needed for the storage units, I guess. So we feel like we have provided the necessary 3 for the office. That's all. That's the only part. And the other parking spaces that we just talked about, the RV was just, that's storage, it's not really parking. I mean, it's parking, but it's not parking for someone driving in and, you know, they're not gonna park over here and they gotta go pick up or drop off something over there. So I guess I just wanted to kind of, that's the way we were understanding the parking. Does that seem logical?
It does seem logical. Bob, I guess I would ask you what the precedent is on this type of land use, since it's not specifically in the zoning ordinance for parking.
The facility's been there for a long time. I think it's been 15, 20 years, I think.
1995.
Okay.
They only have 1 employee there too. At the moment.
I think originally we used to have
Half of
a
that.
person across the street in the house. was
Still there,
Yeah, okay. It was the caretaker, now you're gonna put the office there for.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I think that's improvement. I mean, because, you know, people had to go across the street to the residence to go with somebody in there.
Oh,
Across Dixie's this way, you're looking at the same side as the facility, I think that's right.
so that would be 1 person that would be working there, maybe part-time, you're saying, right? If that,
Yeah.
and then you have 3 spaces, so.
I've never had a complaint on the operation from the beginning. It's always been pretty well kept, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's something that we can discuss.
I think that was good. Okay, thank you.
Anything further?
No, I just wanted to bring that one thing up, make sure we were kind of understanding their letter. So.
Okay, very good. Now, in addition, I know Mr. Giudice, did I pronounce that correctly? Actually, if you want to just introduce yourself, Tim, let folks know who you are.
Oh, certainly. Tim Juicy, the Ocean Advisors, engineer on behalf of them.
And you've also conducted an engineering review or study of the expansion site plan review. If you could just elaborate on your findings.
Very much appreciate, always a pleasure. This site, from an engineering perspective, is relatively straightforward. Some plans have indicated that there's certainly a lot of detail to work out in the detailed engineering review, but they have laid out and accounted for in their site design all of the necessary requirements for storm drainage, detention, meeting all the new county requirements from this stormwater management standpoint. Sizing that we looked up in detail, the appears to be the appropriate sizes that are allocated. You know, that for the proposed paving, rebuilding. The office up in front, part of the individual well and small stuff. Engineers have to feel for that. Those, obviously, require permits from open provision for both of those, which will work through the process as we begin the construction plans. But from a site paving, site circulation, all the grading, for the most part, everything drains off to the northeast, which is how they're maintaining existing facilities where they're located in the detention wall going back. So from an overall site impact or no negative impacts on adjacent properties from grading or drainage, pretty straightforward. Obviously, that's from a paving standpoint. The bulk of the site is paved for access aisles around the buildings to access all storage units. And then as that was indicated there, basically connecting to the existing site and using the existing gravel approach on Dixie, which we're certainly appreciative of to limit the amount of curb cuts on Dixie Highway. So from an engineering perspective, this is site plans and we recommend approval. Obviously, we're going to work out the details of the engineering review when they get to that point. Some of the utilities, storm sewer sizing, getting all the appropriate permits for the water and septic systems. No concerns from the site layout.
Very good. Mr. Keith, Mr. Hall, any questions for Tim with regard to his report?
I wish I was Mr. Keith and Mr. McGuinn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Sorry about that. I heard Keith earlier. I
I
thought,
know.
okay, you got it. No questions for Tim?
No. No.
Anybody in attendance have questions with regard to the site plan review by the by Michelle or Tim on behalf of the township? No? Commissioners? Any questions, comments, concerns? Well, thank you both, Michelle and Tim, for your reports. That's appreciated. I guess at this time, without questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion to either approve with conditions, or to deny the site plan application of Sherlock Storage.
You're gonna do it? I make a motion to approve the site plan for Sherlock Storage expansion on condition that they remedy the outstanding items A through F from section 5.
And that's within Michelle Bennett's report, correct?
Yes.
I'll do a second.
So we have a motion as stated by Commissioner Newbill. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 You want to recommend it to the township board.
And I recommend that motion to the township board.
That's what it has to be done.
Okay,
I'll get it all figured out.
Duncan said,
very good. So
You do the site plan, we won't see it.
the motion is,
No, the site plan stops with you.
Yeah.
It's only the zoning changes that have to, or
Oh,
ordinance changes that have to go to us.
okay,
so the motion is stated with
yes.
conditioned upon approval of the
The outstanding
cited
items.
recommendations.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried and approved. Roll call. We can do a roll call vote if you'd like,
Yes.
please.
Dave Newbill,
Yes.
Ken Shane,
Yes, ma'am.
Jenny McKay. Yes. Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Angela Willis,
Yes.
Jeff Penzine,
Yes.
Neil Holman.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So at this time, I guess we'll roll back on the agenda to communications and notices with regard to the Renaissance Festival and an update as to our communications with the festival leadership. Just today, I don't know.
Just today, I received that letter from Kathy, which normally I should have never put it in the packet, but because this is such a pressing issue, I added it to it. It's a pretty lengthy letter about what she would like to do. I would say that
this be discussed between Kathy, the PC chair here at Groveland, the PC chair at Holly, in further detail.
Okay, but with regard, well, if I could back up a little, we had, on behalf of the commission, I had sent a letter to Kathy Parker on behalf of the Renaissance Festival, February 15th, just identifying some concerns that we had openly discussed at a meeting in January, I believe it was. And we've now fielded a written response from the festival through Kathy, just as of this afternoon. And as Danielle just indicated, it's quite lengthy. The commission has hardly had much time to kind of digest it and really formulate a response. So I guess would the idea be to kind of flesh out the content, the substantive response of the commission here tonight? Or
I would suggest that if you guys had time to read it, to touch base, who's here representing? So maybe if you do have questions about what's happening, to touch base with their affiliate. But anything to be written or, just because this can drag out for hours.
okay. Well, I guess first of all, sir, if you could introduce yourself. to
Yes, my
those
name is
of you-
Chip Schultz. I'm the Safety Services Director and Weekend Operations Manager for the Renaissance Festival. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Peterson, the owner, and Kathy Parker, the Executive Director, who is in Florida directing the Bay Area Renaissance Festival.
Okay, and you go by Chip?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for coming, Chip. Nice to meet you. Kathy did indicate in her response, as you know, that you would be here tonight. The folks who are also here, residents, I'm assuming, with a vested interest in the go forward decisions of the commission, correct? Would you like names for the record, or you want?
If everybody could state their name and their address for the record, that would be great. When they come.
Did they sign in?
Or did you sign in there? Did everybody sign in? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, did everybody sign in? Everybody, okay. Well, I guess just I'll begin with my review of the letter. And first of all, it was welcome news to know that they responded. It had been some time and we were kind of curious as to why the delay, but I think the letter substantively spoke to some of the cause for that, which is appreciated. Overall, I thought there was a spirit of cooperation that was kind of reiterated. It was conciliatory in a sense, because there were some significant issues, as you can tell by the folks here in the room, that on behalf of the township, as a commission, we want to deal with, and best we can make sure that there's a plan in place so it doesn't replicate this season.
Absolutely.
So just with regard to Kathy's response on behalf of the festival, she kind of went through and item by item, there were 7 bullet points, if you will, that we had addressed and kind of identified as points of concern, I guess high points of concern, that she's gone through point by point and responded to those. So Danielle, would you want to go through those individually, or do you have a preference as to how the
For Kathy's
commission?
letter?
Correct. Because each of these, in my view, are warranting of a further response,
Yes.
if not some dialogue, just to keep it moving. I think this is a good second step, if you will.
Okay,
I've
I
got
would
a
agree.
comment to make, though. I guess one thing, and I understand that, in terms of the Michigan Renaissance Festival, there's been a long-standing relationship with the township and the festival. However, I think what got me with the letter is the fact that this letter was issued back on the 15th of February. And granted, yes, the owner had COVID, that's very unfortunate, and the executive director had surgery. But the question I have is the first response, March 22nd. Why wasn't there at least a follow-up response to the township to indicate, hey, here's what's going on, we can't get back with you, instead of letting it languish until today?
I believe the answer to that question is, first of all, Kathy wasn't aware of the letter. She's been in Florida since the beginning of January.
Okay.
So They were not aware of the certified letter. I do believe that was sent back in January or February to the office, more than likely, where it's unmanned at this time. So there wasn't any way to get that letter.
She did call me the day that the letter was sent certified.
Did she?
So yeah, she did get it the day. She was aware of it the day that it was sent certified.
Mr. Peterson, and there's, so you have to remember, if you don't know, the company is owned out of Minnesota. So the owner of the company lives in Minnesota, catches him down in Florida. He was very sick and she was unable to, for the first time ever, he was speechless. He was unable to communicate with her to get your letter out to you. And the executive director, Mr. Beller, the legal assistant, was also sick. So trying to get them all coordinated to talk and get this letter out to you, that's the reason why.
I get that, but at least a response back to the township to indicate that the two key folks were incapacitated and could not, and based on it, cannot be gathered up, and we will get back to you at a different point in time, at
And I
least an acknowledgement.
Sure, and I can't speak for Kathy. She may have made some phone calls to the township. I don't know the answer to that question. Mr. Palmer might be able to address that.
May I comment, Mr. Chairman?
Bob, yes, please.
I have talked to Kathy several times, and I know there's a reference in that letter that said she had told me she made some other suggestions. In fact, I must not have been hearing it because I didn't hear any other suggestions. I'm just being honest with you. My comments to her were, I think you need to talk to the chairman about this issue. And the problem is, and I think Ms. Willis is right on point, I started this in October, right after the fiasco. I went to Holly and said, we have to do this together. And there's a change in attitude there where they've been pretty receptive to saying, yeah, we ought to do it together or not. I've talked to some of you in the interim about it. We've all agreed that's what needs to be done. And I have told Kathy she should be talking to the chairman to get those issues resolved. And what we have now, to your point, Angela, is we now have 6 months that it has lapsed since we first brought this together, and I had the state police, the Oakland County Sheriff, and everybody and their brother I could think of at that meeting, right? And to the best of my knowledge, I don't know that any of it's been done. And what I want her or your organization to do, and I don't care if it's you or her or her son or somebody else you hire, to get responses back to the planning commission on what it is we're actually going to get done, because we've now used half a year, and I don't believe we've actually gotten anything fixed. And part of the main problem is all relevant to the traffic flow out there. The state police and the sheriff were very consistent in what they suggested. We made it very clear at the beginning that I didn't think it'd be any problem for us to approve extra entry points if that would help. And what's happened is, you know, Chip, you cannot build another road in there in a week.
No.
You're gonna have to get somebody, because I'm sitting there begging contractors for prices on our new fire station, and they're telling me, you ordered it in March, I might get it by next spring. I finally got one that thinks he can get it in 6 to 8 months. You are not going to be able to just pick up the phone, I think, and say, I want another driveway cut in all the way from the back parking lot up to Dixie Highway and have it done in a blink of an eye. I don't even know if you can get somebody. That's the principal problem that we have. I don't feel, and I don't think the planning commission feels like we're actually getting anything done. And I'm not trying to pick on you, Chip. I've known you a long time. Okay. Something's got to get going on this. So they tried to enumerate the basis of all the points that came up in all those discussions we've had since October. And Holly has said, yeah, we'll do what you want. We'll do this together. But something's got to get done. And the way it's going now, I see a very high propensity for having another situation where come August the 10th, just before they open up, they say, well, we couldn't get all of that done. And even when I read the letter, which I didn't see until after 4 o'clock today, because Danielle gave it to me, I was reading it when the office was closing. Okay. I'm sitting there reading some of those comments, and it sounds to me again like it's, well, and if it doesn't work, we just have to go with the flow of it. That has been the fundamental problem that I think Jim and the rest of you have been trying to say. There's never a plan B. Plan B is, If it works good, we're all happy. If it doesn't, well, we just gotta go with the flow and whatever happens, happens. And that's when it's a complete fiasco out there. And I am tired of people yelling at me like it's my festival, because I have to keep on reminding them, it's not even in my township. We're just stuck with all the traffic from it. And it's not for lack of trying, because I've fixed this twice before, but it never lasts more than about 3 years. And the fundamental reason is there's never a backup plan to fix it. And even now, it sounds like they're vacillating on whether or not you're going to buy those electronic signs. To me, that should be a drop in the bucket to the festival.
Yeah.
You need them every year. And this past year, when you said, well, we waited too long, we couldn't get them, I'm sorry, that's pure sophistry.
Yeah, let me
Okay.
throw some words in too. I agree with Bob. I agree with Angela. You know, this is not business as usual. And I don't want the Renaissance Festival to think that getting approval is just a foregone conclusion. You guys are a multi-million-dollar industry. This is not just a local fair in Groveland Township. You have resources, you can buy signs, you can put roads in. I read her letter and I took it as a slow walk, as an excuse. To Bob's point, just buy him time. So when we get closer to this, you say, well, we tried and the vendor couldn't support us and we can't do any better. Do not assume that this board is going to approve this, and be forewarned, we are working with other townships.
Understand.
One of the examples is, I don't know how many times I've said from the very first meeting last fall, when they made suggestions, the state police, I think, made this suggestion, put signs up on Perryville, Laring and Holdridge, I think it was.
Yep.
This says, big signs at the front of the road that says, no parking on this road during the festival. And then the other part that was left off of the letter apparently was, violators will be towed.
Right.
And he said, that's because he said, you can put no parking signs all the way down Perryville till you get to the other end of the township. That ain't gonna change them. They need to know they're gonna be towed, which is why the state police had suggested a methodology for telling the people in the festival, hey, you got 15 minutes to get your car out of there because they're coming with the tow trucks, right? So her answer is, you know, we're working on it. I told her multiple times, those signs can be ordered directly from Alex, the engineer in the sign department at the road commission, who I've known for, I think, 20 years. And he says, we do those here. You don't have to have a regular traffic order. We can get them made, but they got to go through the sign shop. And you know, the sign shop in the road commission, that's the holy grail. You know, you put requests in, and if you're lucky, in a year or two, the sign actually comes out. So I told her at the beginning, you need to call Alex, get those signs ordered. And he said, you can buy them, we'll put them up for you, and then you gotta have someplace to store them until next year when they take them down and put them again. So it's not a regular traffic order like the no U-turn stuff we have posted on Dixie. But here we are, 6 months later, no signs ordered.
Can
You're
you
gonna
give
end up
us
trying to
any
order those, and the
update
sign
on
department's gonna
items
say it ain't gonna get
that
done.
you are moving on this list? Any items you are concretely moving on, contracts you've written, suppliers you've
I cannot
contacted?
give that information.
How soon can you get us a timeline on each of these items?
I would have to get a hold of Kathy tomorrow.
Because we're not going to wait another month to find out that things haven't started to move. You're not going to make it. And we're not going to bend.
And I think it even goes beyond signs. I mean.
It's all items.
That's the whole thing.
It's not just the items here, but reading in terms of exactly what happened last season. I know because I was in that traffic. It's, and it was horrific, the line. So I understand why people were bolting off and parking down the side streets. And I know on here on this letter, it clearly states our 2021 attendance was below average. And it was mainly due to significant staffing issues and other pandemic related hurdles. Well, my point is why, because I know why that's an issue. It's during your special event days, which you know you're going to draw your largest crowds. So knowing that you have staffing issues and you've got hurdles, going back and really understanding what you need to do to appropriately staff up during those special event days to prevent those long lines from forming, to not give the people incentives of parking down private roads to begin with. That's what needs to be addressed. Not just the items on this list, but also what are you doing to root cause the problem and put measures in place to prevent folks, or at least make it a deterrent, so they're not bolting off and going down those private roads? And I think it gets back to doing a better job on the planning, even though you may be limited on staffing, and figuring out how you're going to support those special event days, because those are the days that are going to be the most troublesome. And that's where you're going to have your highest attendance, regardless if your overall attendance was below average. You still are going to spike up on those special event days.
Every day is a special event.
No, it's not.
It is.
If I may,
I will say this, historically, the Renaissance Festival, 5th weekend is gonna be the weekend in question. That's the weekend we're talking about. There's something about that weekend that just draws everybody's attention.
but Jim, let me give you an example. I happen, purely coincidental, I happen to be talking to Wally Fruit, who owns the haunted house. And it came up in the discussion several weeks ago about the traffic problem. It's always the last 3 weekends,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Because of the little, yep.
yeah, one of them was the Highland Fling.
And you got the pub
Right.
crawl and, yeah.
What calls every day?
Now, when I said that to Wally, you know what he said? He said, Bob, you know, I had the same problem. When I opened the haunted house for September and October. I get a lot of people in October. I don't get very many in September though. And I'm open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I always have Thursday and Sunday as light traffic. Friday and Saturdays when I get bonkers traffic. So you know what he did? He said, I raised the tickets in October and I lowered them in September. I raised them on Saturday and Friday and I lowered them on Thursday and Sunday, and it helps smooth the traffic out for them. We can never seem to get that. Whenever we talk to the festival, it seems to be they have to have those tickets available for the entire 7 weeks, which constantly makes the last 3 a mess. I know you don't want to do date specific, but you either have to find a way to manage the traffic flow correctly on a perpetual basis and respond when something goes wrong, like your parking people don't show up, or it's too sunny today or whatever, or you have to change the way you do the tickets. It's just totally unreasonable to expect our community, which doesn't even have the festival, to deal with the colossal mess we have. Pretty much about every 3rd year, it's a real blowout. And in between years, it's kind of okay. It's still bad on the weekend, on the end weekends, but I can't fix it every 3 weeks or 3 years. I mean, it needs to be fixed. It should have a proactive plan. And that's what I think Jim was emphasizing the last time we were talking. You need a good traffic company that knows how to do it. And we got a couple of suggestions from the state police, I think, of firms that did it. And another one called me out of the blue because he heard about it. And there are people that do that, and there's ways to manage that. It needs to be fixed on a perpetual basis, rather than saying, well, if we happen to have a good year this year and everything does work all right, see, we fix it, and then we just have to be fluid, as the letter says, for whatever happens next. But being fluid is, that is pure sophistry. I'm sorry. It does not work, and I am tired of trying to fix the same thing every couple of years. Pardon?
You fix it, the festival.
Yeah. Do I look, I don't know how to run a festival. I can care less.
So, okay, Bob, thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I got pulled
No,
out.
thank you. Yeah,
When it's time, I've got something to say. Whenever
absolutely. I would invite comments from anyone who has thoughts to offer on the subject. Jim?
Chip, sorry, we're all taking shots at you, but
Hey,
I'm going to be honest, it's warranted. So I have a little bit of extra ammunition because I'm in this industry, and partially reinforcement, partially for constructive criticism. In different language, I have seen here, both as a trustee and an in and out member of the planning commission, to be honest with you, a cavalier attitude on Kathy's part. And honestly, if you can't tell, I can assure you that's done. I have a bet with myself. You guys may not be in business this year. That's how serious we're all taking it here. And it hurts me because it's great for everybody. I feel it's dangerous now, personally. Some things and please, You're not taking notes, so I'm happy this is recorded.
I'm taking notes, Mr. Christopher.
I am too.
All right,
So,
excellent,
I'm,
excellent, thank you,
I'm taking the notes.
thank you.
I know
And it's
exactly
Tim.
what you're saying. So.
I'm not Mr. unless you're a police officer. to give you-
Guess what, Mr. Christopher?
We're all naked.
I am a detective with Groveland County Sheriff's Office,
So.
and I have stood on Dixie Highway and directed traffic,
So-
so I know what you're talking
So some, I'm gonna say parenthetical things that I think are highly important. Personally, I'm only one board member. I would like to see a legitimate subject matter expert come up with a traffic study that we can all see that will show an enduring yet agile plan that will have conditions, Chip, that say, when we see this objective measurement, it's going to trigger whatever it needs to trigger, whether we close the doors, whether we open up another entrance or exit. Okay. Again, I'm very close to the industry. Road, I believe, had somebody on staff, if that's your engineering choice. Similarly, because I want to embrace a collaborative spirit here, that study should be able to show to us inflows, outflows. I would like to believe by time buckets. We've hinted with Kathy. I don't think we've said it just like that, but I'm saying it. I think that's valuable to all of us. So as a collective team, we can make decisions having the data that we need to support it. Similarly, I think it's equally important if you have it. I'd like to be able to take a look at whatever disaster plan you have in the event of a mass exodus for whatever reason. And I think Holly folks would like to see that too. I think it's very important. It's strategic. And I gotta believe your insurance provider.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have to go back and find it.
that would be great stuff to have. I think that, again, I'm not running your show at all. I think that the traffic study is the absolute first thing that needs to be done. It may determine there are a different set of criteria that will allow you to not have another road. And another road, and I'm sorry to say, I'm getting a little excited, I can't remember the road, but a lot of our neighbors don't want the outflow on their road. And I don't think Holly Polish, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't think of it. So that's from my perspective is, I'm championing everything that was said here by our mutual team. I really think you guys professionally have an enormous challenge ahead, and every day is going to matter to you guys. So that's my 2 cents.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
I got a
Jim.
question.
Yes, sir.
So I live on Laring Road. I was asked to sit in and just check this out tonight.
What is your name again, sir?
Phil Marker.
Okay.
So I live at Laring Road and I-75. I don't see no problem with Renaissance Festival, so I'm just trying to. I was.
You
coming
live in
to
Holland,
some
right?
noise. Huh?
You live in Holland, right?
I live at Laring Road and I-75. I live right across the street from the Renaissance Festival. I kind of oversee a lot of things that are going on in the off season. So what are the 7 issues that we have here? Other than, this is one issue right here, right? Is the traffic flow?
Well, there was a correspondence that was sent to the festival, and, you know, I think traffic and parking are significant issues, but there are a number of others that were identified.
So I'm just trying to look at this. You're having traffic issues because you got 50,000 people that want to go to the Renaissance Festival on Saturday, right?
25.
Or whatever it is. If it's 300,000 a season, I'm just breaking it up. How do you even begin to do something about that? I mean, they all want to go.
Yeah, but it's
Well-
the festival's responsibility to be able to manage that. People can't be parking on people's private roads
I
and
totally get that.
trespassing, and that's what the issue is here.
Okay. Because I've
is-
never had a problem.
Yeah,
live-
and I know where you're at, and I can see why you wouldn't have a problem.
Right.
But you got folks on the other side of Dixie Highway, case in point, Perryville and Groveland, where I remember driving down there every day, and any given, during those big days, you'd see people lined up, and then you would see people walking back, trespassing in people's yards, throwing beer cans and everything else, getting back to their vehicles.
Okay, so now I get it.
This is exactly to the case in point, though. you're in Holly. Holly has never complained. I can tell you when I first brought this up to George, who is now the supervisor.
I don't even know the place is there until they fire the cannon off.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And you know what George said to me when I said, we gotta do something about the Renaissance Festival, because he wants to help. He said, and he kind of joked and said, I don't have any problem, Bob, they all complain to you. And they do,
I'm just
because the
being honest.
traffic's not going down your road.
Right, that's why.
Because they haven't allowed it to in the past. There's been a request by the festival to
Yeah, I've only
use
been there 6
Larry
years.
Road, and they've denied it. And there's been a request in the past to use Holdridge, which I agree is a terrible road because it's a dead end and poorly maintained. And then that was denied, so we came up with, maybe we could run the second point on the 1,600 feet of frontage that the festival owns on Dixie, which would keep the entrance
Are
point
you
far
talking, are
apart.
you talking from the trailer park to the office?
They own 1,600 feet south of the last driveway
Yeah.
on the frontage, which would allow, but again, that's, somebody's got to build a road to get into it, right? And clear the trees out.
And just out of curiosity, but there's no wetlands right there?
That's wet, that's all wet right there.
What's that?
It looks like there's a large expansion.
There's a lot-
of land, which would be.
There's wetlands there, so I don't think we can actually put a road through.
Well, again, we aren't going to find out, but by August of this year, if you don't get cracking on whether or not you can get a permit, because you can get permits to cross wetlands if you can bring the rationale for it to the state and show them why, because I did it for my son in his backyard once.
So for sake of argument right here, I think that the letter that was sent by Kathy, she does have responses to what you had originally sent. I think maybe we should just go over those right now and see that you're, I guess,
See what your points were, and
Yeah.
see how they're claiming to address it. For
If
me,
you're-
because there's a lot of people here, they might not know what the 7 points are that you
Well,
outlined.
Right, yeah. So what you're saying is identify what was laid out and then speak to the response?
yeah, just
Like
say what-
categorically point, counterpoint?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
but Mr. Marker, thank you for coming, but I will reassure you that the other folks here maybe have a different experience
Oh,
than
yeah, I
yourself.
totally get it. I never know the place is there until the cannon goes off, so,
Correct, but there are some serious
yeah.
logistical
came.
concerns that we're trying to address proactively to get out front of this so that this year we're not back in the same woeful place.
Yeah.
And there can be measures undertaken, but as you've heard, time is of the essence and proactivity it's needed. And we're not really seeing that. And I think that's where the concern is. But to your point, Danielle, thank you. With the letter was sent to Kathy. As indicated, there were seven different bullet points. And I'll just go through them in order. The first one being seasonal signs. Order through the Road Commission for Oakland County to be placed on side streets. For example, no parking during festival on Perryville, Laring, and Holdridge roads. That was the point of contention.
Although it also has to say violators will be towed. That was requested at the beginning too.
Okay. I apologize. That was not specified in the letter, but that I think goes part
But it
and
was
parcel.
covered well when she was there at the beginning.
Okay. In response, Kathy's response, and I'll just read it for the benefit of everyone here. The festival endorses the placement of the desired signs. In the past, we have been informed by the Michigan Department of Transportation and the Oakland County Road Commission that the desired, quote, no parking during festival, end quote, signs requested to be located on the specified side roads could not be installed. Possibly, if we make a joint request, we will be able to satisfy this point. We have been permitted to have seasonal directional signs on Dixie Highway. Festival supports all efforts to have adequate signage.
And if I can, Mr. Chairman, to that point, I said early on, because Alex was in the meeting with us, he said, we could take care of those signs here. And I said, you need to call Alex because it takes time to get signs. I just noticed today, we finally got the speed limit signs I've been trying to get on Grange Hall Road. They must have gone in the last day or two. And Alex
Versus others.
Rakowski I'll give you his number before you leave.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll call him tomorrow.
And I guess, there were certain aspects of the letter that were, I guess, factual representations that I just don't know if they're accurate or not, to be honest with you. And that being one of them with regard to, I guess the MDOT's and the county's, response to the prior signage request.
Again, MDOT is if you want to put something on I-75, you can't touch it without them saying, okay. The county is on a county road, but these signs, Alex said we can take care of those.
And Alex is
Was
road
an
commissioner.
engineer with the road commission. He's
So
the guy
there
got
you
me
go.
the signs like Grange Hall.
There you go.
So just with point number one, I mean, to have the benefit of a plan as we walk out of the room tonight, what would anyone suggest or recommend with regard to, ensuring the compliance of the festival with that point? Is there a way to ensure that that's?
I would want to know that they've talked to Alex, that we have a signed contract for signs, that those signs will be due at this date, and we have X number of signs that will be placed in these following locations on Perryville, Laring, and Holdridge roads, and that should not be difficult.
Actually, everybody, an entire checklist of all the things that we need needs to be demonstrated prior to our approval.
But
And
am I, go
And
ahead,
I guess
Jenny.
I'd like to say, Jim's comment about the study, we are not experts at running a Renaissance Festival, and we are not experts on automobile traffic flow. There could be things that we, including the state police, the fire department, everybody don't know and haven't suggested yet. That's why it's imperative that you have somebody independent who does specialize in this, do something for you and for
I
us.
believe in the past we have done that.
We've
We've had a traffic study done.
The traffic study, I don't know about, but I do know there was a parking study.
Parking study done.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, because Neil just laid out a very specific, iteration.
Saying word for word about what Jeff's last letter said? Are you going off of what Jeff's letter said?
I'm just
No.
going off the top of my head that, again, this is not a difficult thing. We're talking to the road commission, who can authorize us to use these signs, to order the signs. And it's as easy as signing a contract and saying these will be delivered in 60 days or whatever. How many signs those need to be so that they can cover Perry, Laring, and Holdridge roads. And then we can know that signs are on order. They're committed to be here before the festival starts. We have enough signs to cover the areas that are critical, and it's been approved by the road commission. That's a sit down with Alex, and with writing a check for a multi-million-dollar corporation, that shouldn't be difficult for signs. And you can say, we have a plan, and we can check that plan month after month to say, they've received the money, signs are halfway done, signs are done, signs have been delivered, signs have been installed.
Thank you. And
Just
go ahead.
so Mr. McLaughlin's request, how many signs?
That's a discussion with Alex. If we're on 3 roads, I don't know how
I think
deep
they
you
have
have to go.
suggested 2 at the entry point to each of those
Since
roads.
I'm not an expert, Alex is in the road commission. But if he says we need X number of signs to cover this properly, that's the plan.
At least one for each direction, and you got 3 roads, so at least 6.
So are we stipulating right now exactly what we want? Because if so, I have to note that in the minutes.
For purposes of expedience and scheduling, I would recommend that. I know it's gonna take a longer time to, kind of flush out what
Yeah, you're
we,
gonna have to read.
It's recorded too, can't we go back to the recording?
So 2 signs at each street.
Well, I'm not
Discussion
saying-
with Alex at the road commission to understand what the road commission feels you need for signage.
He's the one who made the recommendation at the meeting, so he could tell you, but my memory thinks it was 2 signs, one on each side of the road, so when somebody pulls in, they can't possibly not see the sign that says, no parking allowed, violators will be towed.
It would seem that given the prior involvement of Alex, a contact from the festival would be anticipated at this point, such that if there's a request, he would have some, formulative response that would, sufficiently address the concern we're speaking of. And I guess for Danielle's benefit and for the minutes, I don't know if we need the specificity that Mr. Laughlin is offered at this point, or do we just want to know that there's been a contact or request and that there's a response forthcoming or expected to be forthcoming from?
Alex does these kinds of things, because I got him working on 2 or 3 things. He'll tell you what he thinks he needs. I mean, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be
So not-
at least 2 on each road.
And I agree, that should be an easy one, right?
That should be softball.
Yeah, sir.
Can you include a sign then for where Van Road and Trip meet? So that
Yes,
all the
yes.
people that come back to the back roads, will see that as well.
That's Van Road and Trip.
Van and Trip in Grange Hall, right on the corner where it comes off of the dirt. And everybody with their GPS was coming back down. Van Road.
Yeah, but the problem with the GPS is what tells the people when it gets backed up. We talked about that. When it gets backed up, the GPS starts saying, well, if you can't get on Dixie Highway because it's all foobarred up, come on down Van till you get to Trip or something else. You can't stop that though. It's in GPS.
But he's asking for
Put a
signs.
sign there that
Yes,
says
yes.
it'll never be towed, 'cause I understand last. I don't think anybody was parked there. I think people were all the way down.
Yeah, they
and
were.
on Van Road.
Well,
Yeah.
again, I don't think the road commission will willy-nilly put these signs all over. I think the feeling of both the state police and the Oakland County Sheriff was, if the traffic gets managed correctly with the number of access points and you post those 3 roads, it should stop the rest of the problems. They're not gonna take signs, because we talked about that, and go all the way down Van Road and say no parking.
Well,
They're just not
no,
gonna
you
do
talked
it.
about one at the entrance.
I don't think
That's what I'm saying, at the entrance of Van Road coming right off of Trip and Grange Hall. So when people come back that way, they know they're gonna be towed.
You could ask him, Chip, but I'd be surprised if they would do that one.
I'm making note.
But wouldn't the township, the commission be wise to leave those, those esoteric nuances to the experts? I mean, we're not
There are
parking.
things that you can get done by requesting them through Alex, but most traffic signs, almost all of them, have to have an MSP state order. They come out of 2 guys in Lansing, and you will be old and sick by the time you get some of them. I'm just
Whitehead?
telling you. I just know what it is. It's very hard. I've been trying to get for the Frisbee Golf no parking signs for 2 years, and Alex is helping me, but we're humbling along here. But that one takes a traffic order because it's a permanent sign.
Right.
If he'll do this one, I don't know. You can ask him. But I personally, I don't think they want to start putting them all over the quadrant in Groveland Township. I think they want the problem addressed at the source and fixed.
So with regard to what we would ask of the festival as to the signage issue, bullet point number 1. Is there a time frame by which there can be contact with the road commission, Alex, somebody in authority there?
Tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I'm working from home tomorrow morning. You'll get a phone call from me.
He will?
Yes.
And when will we be advised of the, I guess, the outcome or the anticipated result of that contact?
As soon as I get a quote from him and an idea of when those signs can be done, and I get approval from the owner to go ahead and push that forward.
Okay.
Obviously, you see that we're wanting to work on that and work with you to get those signs up. So this, I think Mr. McLaughlin said, this is a baseball. This is something that was simple, it's an easy fix. And this is a simple phone call tomorrow morning.
And if you see a roadblock, notify us so we can react. If there's support we can give you to keep this running.
Absolutely.
So do we need to put that on a time frame?
Yes.
Yes.
I will, I'll have minutes that I'll do up, but I will also do a separate time chart, I guess you could say, as to when we're expecting these.
Okay. It's nothing we have to agree upon tonight.
Yeah, in the minutes, I mean, if you're okay with what he says by time, or if you want to put a specific time in there, like you have a week, you have 10 days, you got.
It
He's
seems,
gonna call tomorrow morning.
it seems like minutia, but you're gonna call. I respect that. I appreciate that.
Get the ball rolling.
But my concern is, what is, if Alex comes back and says, sorry, bud, we, we've got issues, or we got problems, or for whatever reason, like Bob's saying, it's just logistically going to be difficult. When are we going to learn of that?
I will ask him tomorrow morning if this is something he sees feasible, what he can have done. And if he doesn't, does he have an alternate plan for a festival to go to seek that? I guess other than
That's a good plan.
that's, there's
Okay.
nothing more I can say about it. If they can't do it, we'll seek an alternate plan.
Okay. And you said you're with the county, you're with the sheriff's
I'm the
department?
Sheriff's Department detective, yes, sir.
All right.
I would suggest that updates be given to us prior to the next PC meeting. Packets goes out, which is a
Well-
week prior to the meeting. So I have some sort of documentation to put in the packets that these 7 steps that we had asked for have been approached, and something's been started with all of them.
When's that next meeting?
It's the 4th Tuesday of every month, so
So a week before that, the third Tuesday of every month you want the
Yes.
progress report.
so it's due by the 3rd Tuesday of every month.
So specifically, our meeting in April would be April 19th, correct?
Yes.
No, that's.
No,
No.
April 26th.
26th of April.
That's
That
when,
would-
the 19th is when I need all paperwork.
Yes.
So you would need an update from festival as to
Yep.
where we're at and all these 7 points. By the 19th, you can have the packet.
Yep,
And what is our meeting day?
26th.
the 26th.
Yeah, it would be the 19th, Chip. So should we move on to bullet point 2?
Yes.
Does anybody in the audience have any further comments or questions regarding the signage issue, which is item number 1?
My only, I'm Stu Content, I live on Perryville in the second house then. My only concern is that we're actually gonna have people backing that up. Because that was the problem last year, that they would all park down both sides of my road. They didn't care.
Sue, with all due
This
respect,
year.
I think that's bullet point 5, a contingency of plan.
I'm sorry.
They had one tow truck driver, you know,
Okay,
and they didn't have other resources, you know,
So-
to call other companies.
so let's continue with, I guess, the letter. So bullet point number 2 in the February 15th letter to the festival stated, adding another exit and another entrance, engineered prints and plan review process will be required. This will not only need to be approved by Groveland and or Holly Townships, but also through Oakland County. In the response as of today, which I will read, the festival believes a need exists for one additional dedicated exit road. Traffic is only an issue on limited well-attended dates, which only occur during the last 3 weekends each season. The problem is the result of people arriving and departing from the same gate at the same time. One new dedicated, quote, exit only, end quote, road will solve this issue. We will work with the appropriate regulatory staff to accomplish this prior to the commencement of our 2022 season. Please note that the festival has attempted to secure this additional exit road in the past and have been denied by the township. Hopefully this will change. So with regard to that item, Bob, I think this goes to your commentary earlier regarding just the challenges with regard to constructing at this point a
I have two
sufficient
comments on
exit.
that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
The state police and the sheriff both thought it needed at least 2 more points. Okay. And it, I'm not the engineering expert. Maybe it is 1, but I think to Jim's original request, do we have somebody with credentials in that field that actually validates, is it 1 or 2? Because both the state police and the Michigan and the Oakland County Sheriff both said they thought they needed 2 more exit points. And the ones that they had suggested initially was, before they looked at what's the street that, you know, Holdridge, before they looked at Holdridge, because they went after the meeting and said, yeah, I want to look at it, it's a crappy road, don't put them on Holdridge. See if you can come bring them out on Dixie. The other one was to use Laring Road and send the westbound traffic westbound that goes to Ann Arbor and so forth, 23, and get them completely out of the Dixie mix. That's what they suggested. I'm suggesting, and I think what the commission has suggested is hire somebody that's actually got expertise in that field to come up and tell us what that design should be and why it should be that way, and maybe they could agree to it. Maybe it is one. I don't know. I'm not a traffic engineer.
In my view, this is one of the most grave concerns I have. And you see some admissions on the part of the festival here with regard to traffic flow, and they almost tacitly acknowledge that what is currently in place is not sufficient, albeit on certain dedicated weekends. I don't know if I agree with that, but for purposes of discussion, they've committed to one new dedicated exit only road, solving the issue based upon what? Is that just a sense of, gleaning from thin air? There needs to be more. And I think we as a commission would advocate and urge and, highly recommend that there's some consultation with an expert on that issue. Because I agree with you, when it comes to construction and in making this actually happen, time's running short. It's running very short. And this is a biggie.
It's the main issue, according to the state police.
So basically, this next bullet point should be traffic study. Before you go any further, before really we go further with anything, there needs to be a traffic study done. Because you can't do a site plan if you don't have a traffic study. You can't make a new road if you don't have a traffic study. You don't know where you're gonna put the signs if you don't have a new road.
Tim?
Mr. Chair, obviously being the line of work, there are quite a few firms in the area that would be quite capable of doing a similar traffic study. The challenge is going to be in order to perform that study, they're going to do up-to-date counts based on the actual data of the days and festivals. We're not able to do it until the festival's open. It'd be anecdotal data of previous, unless there's anyone happens to have traffic counts from the previous festival weekends that they could use.
We have our attendance count.
Attendance counts, but yeah, they need to know exactly which cars are which lanes on which. It'd be very difficult to do without data collection during the event itself.
And Chip, again, don't read me the wrong way. To me, it's unconscionable as a business owner. You don't have that information. I just don't get it. It's unbelievably valuable metric.
I know I know that we had, and I couldn't tell you how long. I've been with the festival since 1993, so when Bob said we go way back, we go way back.
Yeah.
And I know sometime in the past, and that's why I'm saying I can't tell you what year it was. We actually did have that piece of rubber out there that was counting cars coming in and going out to give us the traffic count study. I guess that would be. But Jim, I can't tell you when that was.
So to Mr. Giudice's point, and I guess, Tim, I would ask you, if, assuming hypothetically, they had that anecdotal data to provide,
You could do a study.
you could, within the given parameters of time here? Yeah.
Is that at one end?
Yeah, we didn't have a south entrance.
So that wouldn't be.
Yeah, I believe we only had the one entry into.
But I actually think you internally at the festival, that a number of you have a pretty good handle on what, when your traffic peaks, how jammed up it gets, how bad it is. It's not like it's an epiphany and, oh my God, I never thought that happened, You're so used to doing this for all these years that you've got a pretty good handle on, I even told myself, if you're going to the festival this year, don't go, either go right at 10 o'clock or wait because you're gonna get stuck up, jammed up in traffic.
Everybody to go at 10 o'clock in the first 3 weekends.
Yeah.
Michelle,
There's patterns that exist.
Michelle, did you?
Yes, I had a follow-up question for Tim and I guess Bob as well, but so a traffic study is a must. We agree on that. The data is not going to be perfect, but we could come up with something. I think the 6 months that we have, we're not going to get new unless you can tell me otherwise, that that's the time frame in which these new exits and entrances will be built. It will probably not. So it seems like even more important would be to have a contingency plan.
Yeah.
Like, we want the traffic study, but that's not gonna get us what we want for this festival season. So there should
So-
be probably more emphasis on what are we gonna do without
Yeah,
those?
and I understand your point, but I believe that the analysis can be done enough to decide whether or not they need 1 or 2 entry points and where they should be,
Sure.
even if they don't have the rest, because if you just have a contingency plan, the only contingency plan that actually ever can work, the way it's operated right now is when the traffic gets backed up so far that my ambulance can't get out without driving down Dixie Highway, head on into everybody else to get somewhere. Or that we can't get anybody in and out because it's blocked all the way up to the expressway ramp there and all the way up to the expressway ramp at the other end. The only contingency that works is signs that say the festival is closed today, go home, come another day.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do that. But I'm telling you, if you don't put something pretty damn comprehensive in at the beginning, the contingency plan has got to be that, because that's the only alternative left.
It gets back to addressing the root cause of the issue in terms of you already know that you have a problem with the amount of people those last 3 weekends. Regardless of traffic studies, signage and everything else, it's addressing how do you get people quickly into your parking area and quickly out so you're not lined up on Dixie Highway causing a safety issue, and also too giving folks an incentive to turn and park down on these streets. To me, that is
The root
getting
cause.
into addressing the root cause. The signage is a secondary deterrent. And then the traffic study to me is more of a long-term initiative to go through and do the further evaluation on if a new road needs to be, if a different road needs to be leveraged or whatnot, but addressing that root cause to figure out how do I get folks in and out quickly and safely to avoid backups on Dixie Highway and avoid folks from parking on side streets. That's what needs to be addressed. I would like to see a plan from the Michigan Renaissance Festival addressing that. To me, addressing the root cause is what's going to really nip this in the bud versus you could have all the signage in the world, you can do all the traffic studies in the world, but you've got to address the root cause.
Well, I guess, so isn't that what the public study would have done? Or is there a
No,
separate study?
no, it gets back to their staffing. It gets back to, all right, I know for a fact that I've got my peak season is during this time of the year. They already have a rough idea of what their average attendance is, and they already know what their peak season is. So how are they internally addressing it? From a staffing issue, from moving around staffing in terms of scheduling, maybe moving folks from maybe one position, maybe putting more parking attendants out there. I don't know what the right answer is, but doing that internal investigation and say, what can we do within our scope to optimize the flow in and out of there with the proper staffing and that's what I would like to see.
So Angela, if you look at 0.5, it does speak to a contingency plan in the event of a planned failure. And I think what you're touching on is a host of.
No, it's not, what I'm touching on is not a contingency plan. What I'm touching on is getting down to the root cause of the issue, period. To me, if you internally root cause it and get down to it, you're most likely gonna eliminate a decent chunk of the problem. And then whatever's left over, that's when you start getting into, that's where your signage becomes your secondary deterrent. You know, because you may not be able to prevent it 100%, but maybe you can knock it down by 60%, 70%, by figuring out internally what you need to do from a staffing perspective or moving things around or trying to address it.
And I agree with you.
What the state police and the sheriff both said.
But
If you fix those entry exit points, all of this will go away, because he said, we've done other activities where they have 3 times as many people, and I don't understand.
But the challenge for the commission, honestly, is how do we, kind of flush out formulate, put into achievable form, the details of fixing the problem. And I think a traffic study goes part and parcel with what you're describing. It's not the cure, but it's an element of the cure. And Tim, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think you can look at it from two different angles. If you either do a traffic study based on projected attendance and what the optimal use of the facility is, and then you basically back in and say, I need this many people to enter and exit the facility at any given time. Here's the infrastructure I would need to support that. Or you could do it in reverse, and you could say, here's the existing exits and entrance I have. Here's the infrastructure I have. How many people can that support in and out? And then do you limit your ticket sales or attendance or time was based on, I have 2 driveways that I can turn over this many people in that time frame.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, a traffic study would in effect kind of give you, it would lead to your contingency plan.
You could certainly do that. We work with, used to work in the work around the palace, all of those there. Certainly turn over a lot more people in a lot shorter time frame, but there's the infrastructure around is significantly different to handle.
With that, yes, stoplights.
Yes,
I mean,
significantly.
Had an entrance ramp off the expressway.
And honestly,
And I'm not saying
I'm
that.
probably speaking out of what Kathy would really want me to say, but in the past, I think the discussion, Bob, if I'm not mistaken, we discussed putting a stoplight at the entrance to the festival.
I don't remember a stoplight. I know we talked way back about a ramp off the expressway, but they're very hard to get in. That doesn't like to do them. It's probably like trying to find hen's teeth or something.
Yeah, I remember we thought we had a conversation about putting a stoplight there to help try to.
That would be a discussion with the county to see if they do it. My gut feeling, I bet that's
They won't.
$500,000, $1 million project.
Yeah, and
And I doubt they would do it.
they would have to kick off a traffic study in order to, they would have to do some kind of assessment to even determine if you can even.
They're not going to spend $500,000 or $1 million for a traffic light for your settlement.
Yeah.
I think we can bet that.
Yeah, and I'm not disputing that there needs to be a traffic study, there needs to be. But I think along with that, they already have data at their fingertips. They already know, and they openly admit it here in the letter, they already know when their peak season is. They already know on average what their attendance is during that time. They even know their peak times. To me, they have enough information where they can go through. And I don't think we have to detail out specifics, but I would just say for the record that they come back and present a plan on how, based on, and they can show information to us regarding here on average is our attendance during these, here's our busiest times. They could even do a quick graph to show here's your peak and here's your influx of folks coming in. And based on this peak, here is what we're doing to internally address the issues to try to minimize that traffic flow. And based on that, we're estimating that maybe we can see an improvement of, you estimate it, 30–40%. And then along with that, we'll perform a traffic study to identify what the long-term solution is. And also to, as a deterrent, we'll work to get the signs in place at the appropriate locations as prescribed by, or as recommended by the safety engineer. To me, I think just having those short-term and long-term plans in place, and then taking it from there, we may have to iterate along the way, because it's not going to be solved like that. It's not going to be solved by next season. We know that, but it's something to move towards that.
Jim?
In part to dovetail on what Angela said, we're using the word study, but that's one component of it. We need to see the plan.
Yeah.
We need to see the plan that has, for lack of better words, in egghead speak, a bunch of if-then statements. If this happens, then this happens. So we have an understanding. We'll be able to see the capacities, I hope. We'll be able to understand when a certain objective standard hits, what does that trigger in terms of, I'm going to use the word contingency plans, but what does that really trigger in terms of what do we do to absorb more cars into the lot? Those types of things is what we need to see. the only reason, I'm putting words in our chair's mouth, but the only reason we want a checklist is because we haven't had a whole set of objective standards to check off. And now we feel, because we want you guys here, that's why we're, in my opinion, we're going through this. Another municipality would say, see ya, till you get your shit together. We don't want you. So again, that's what we need to see. It's almost identical to what Angela is saying. We need to see a plan. And we need to see the subject matter expert reasoning behind it. I think it will be wonderful if that human comes to the next meeting as prepared as possible to help to allay our needs and our fears here, as well as the rest of the community. And while we haven't said it, this board and everyone else associated with the township is entrusted with our safety here. And I know you know that, but when we can't get emergency vehicles down, it's pretty ugly. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so what is our firming up of number 2? We know there's not going to be a road done this year before the festival starts. There's no way.
I don't know if you want to agree to that.
Oh, I don't think.
I mean, you're sitting with an engineer and planning.
I think my point was just that's unlikely, and so we should think of objective criteria that for the short term, in addition to requiring that they have a study and you have a long-term plan of getting egress and ingress, but what are your criteria going to be in the short term if that cannot happen by September?
August.
No, that's by July.
So your number 1 is you guys definitely want this, the road, but if not, blah, blah, blah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, continue.
I don't know that we want the road. I don't
think you know yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know.
Let the experts tell
Let
us.
the expert tell us.
I
if
don't-
we need a road.
I think it's kind of difficult to step through these points, unfortunately. I think we
I
hit an
agree.
epiphany in terms of, hey, in order for some of this to be entertained, a traffic flow study needs to be done, along with a plan needs to be demonstrated or at least shared to the township from the Michigan Renaissance Festival in terms of addressing how they're going to, what they are going to do to manage that.
If I can add this comment to that.
Please do.
This is why it's become such critical mass that we basically wasted 6 months trying to get something from them that we haven't got. If you say that there's not going to be any road cut in for another access point, I would suggest to you, no, the answer is you've known since October, this is a likely solution. You haven't hired somebody to come up with a final design so that you could get started on it. That doesn't mean it can't be done. That just means that the cost to do it gets exponentially higher the shorter the window to get it done is. I'm sure if you get one excavator that builds roads and say, in October, I need you to put a road into the Renaissance Festival here, and it's gonna, I'm picking a number out of there, I have no idea. It's gonna cost $400,000. And then you come to them and say, I need it in a month, it's gonna be $800,000. It's not that it can't be done. There is a price for neglecting to do it in a timely manner. And that's what the issue is. So I agree, you need the study. They need to get the study quickly so that you have the information to say, here's what you're doing. But if you put this festival on this next year, I personally think you're going to have a gangbusters crowd. Because with COVID pretty well gone, everybody and their brothers got cabin fever up the wazoo. They're going to come out to that festival. Those last 3 weekends, I'll bet, will be the worst we have ever seen. And so in that case, if you don't have the access points in, or the majority of the solution to this problem, you're going to have a contingency plan. And I'm telling you, there's only one contingency plan that I can foresee that works. You close the festival when the traffic gets backed up too far and shut the festival down for the day. That puts a high price on it for the operator, but that is the price for neglecting to take it on in a proactive manner. I'm sorry.
I guess I would like to just say that as a business owner, I don't like people telling me how to run my business. And sitting here, I don't want to be telling you how to run your business either, okay? But I can tell you by being here on the board, if you choose not to do anything and address some of the issues that you obviously know from this letter. You're very well aware of your peaks, your valleys, everything. If you choose not to do it, we can choose not to grant you what you need. And that's that. So whether you choose to provide the information, something to us, I don't care what it is, but get back with us.
Absolutely.
Communicate with us,
Can we,
because your time is running out.
David,
can we set a date for the traffic study to be back to us?
I think he said Tim said it would take a while, but I mean, we can work on it.
What's a while? Oh, Tim, do you have an estimate on what's reasonable?
I mean, it really depends on what data they have available. If they have enough data available, we could get somebody to turn it around probably a 2-month period or something like that. But any, if there's not good base data, I mean,
That's May.
yeah, you're really not doing a lot. It wouldn't be as valuable.
As a board, you guys had stated that you wanted everything completed and approved and ready to go either 60 or 90 days before the festival started. 60, so that would bring us to June, so you would probably need May, April, would need.
So traffic study back to us by May? Is that reasonable?
I don't know if reasonable even matter.
I mean,
but
Seriously.
I feel as though in addition to the traffic study, as Jim had mentioned, we just need to know the plan based internally, as Angela said, also just what is the recommended approach here by the festival based upon its knowledge, its own data, its history of the event, its, it's kind of understanding of when the crowds are greatest and when they wax and wane. We could certainly get something, tangible, something to consider within 2 months from the festival.
Especially since they've known since October, we wanted this information,
Could,
and she was in the meeting.
so could we get a formulated plan from the festival by the 19th, the same date that we're proposing for the,
That's what I would say. It's
I have a note here that says
30 days.
by the 19th,
Okay.
that you want something in writing that hits on every point that we're discussing.
and some indication as to where you're at with regard to pursuit of a traffic study. Or, yeah. So do we continue through the bullet points here? I feel as though that's a little bit of overkill, but as everyone's expressed, unfortunately, I think collectively we agree it's kind of a necessity at this point.
Part of the problem.
Correct? Do we agree with that?
Yes.
For certain, point number 3, I think it's a little bit of dialogue among all of us.
Okay, so on to point number 3. Danielle, we're good with 2? We're good with 2?
So 2, you're just gonna say traffic study is needed.
Well, we need the festival's response to a more specific, if you will, response to
You wanna know how
bullet
the
point 2 and then a report.
internally fix it first.
Correct.
I would call it in addition to the traffic operations plan.
Correct. All right, with regard to bullet point 3.
Can I just?
She has a-
Sorry. Oh, go ahead. They're leaving. They gotta start. Can I just make a quick comment on that?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Janelle. I think most of you know me a little bit. Yes, my last name is Keller. I live on Old Bridge Road, Bob. I wanted to just make a point. Tim had mentioned that there were multiple tactics or strategies that they could, apply in trying to look at this traffic study. I am 99.9% sure that I can speak on behalf of every single resident on Holbrook Road and probably many on Laring as well, if they were here. You can speak to whoever you know on Laring, but I think I probably would speak for a lot of them as well. I think the reality is that the majority of us would really like to see this affect us as least as possible. We already have to deal with the traffic on Dixie Highway.
I know that your plan would be, you would love to take them all down Old Ridge. We are all aware of that. I've seen the plans from many years ago with an exit only strategy. And that is what unfortunately Kathy probably was referencing in that letter, is that many moons ago, that was their hope, is that Old Ridge Road would be an exit road. Since then, I believe that both the MSP and the Oakland County Sheriff and both supervisors, please correct me if I'm wrong here, Bob, have said that's a terrible idea. But regardless of my personal stance on Old Ridge, I don't think it supports our community. I do believe we also need to keep our other residents in mind for some of these things, and that's why we're implementing road signs. Your best tactic from my perspective, and I think is what Angela and Jenny was saying, is bring a plan. You really, I believe that this would never have been a problem, and we wouldn't be here today had this been operated like a well-oiled machine. And I think that if you can just tackle these, not just you, your team, right? Tackle these and bring it forward in a way that you are not negatively impacting our community, things would go very smooth from here. We may not need that extra road, like they were saying. Maybe it's not even needed. But I think, again, I speak for my residents on my road, I think everyone. Many of you were not here a few months ago. I know you were not here. The majority of them were, and they've spoken against that already. But I really think that whatever the plan is, whatever is decided, even if this traffic pattern comes back and says, well, maybe we need to send it down one of the side roads. I hope that you will all consider that, and I hope that you will consider that in your planning. We still have to live here. Whether it's only a few weekends out of the year, guess what? Those are our summer weekends that we want to be outside and enjoy our lives here in this community too. So that is what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bullet point number 3, as presented to the festival reads, festival to purchase electronic signs to be placed on north and south exits 101 and 106 on I-75 and north and south on Dixie Highway. These signs are to be under the control of the festival, so updates and emergency announcements can be made in a timely manner. The festival's response reads as follows. Festival will seek permission to have the requisite signs during the last 3 weekends of our season. No traffic problems exist the initial 4 weekends, and there is no need for signs during that time period.
Well, what she's not saying in there, and what I think the key issue was, is even when they released the signs, her comment to me was, well, we can't change them right away. We have to actually call the people that own the sign, and then they download it with a signal. And I said, that's ridiculous. When it needs to be turned off, you need to be able to do it. You need to have those signs, buy the damn signs and take the control of them so that when a problem arises, we don't have to wait another half an hour or an hour for somebody someplace else to dial into the sign to change the wording on it. And I don't see that in there, but I'm guessing she doesn't want to get the signs and have them available for all 7 weekends. They used to put them out there, and when they didn't have a problem, they put things like this in the Highland Lane or whatever that weekend was called, and used it for advertising. They're fine. We let them put it on the fire department's property. We're fine with it.
I think just as a kind of an initial statement with this 3rd bullet point, do we agree that there's no need for signs during the initial 4 weekends?
No, all weekends.
All weekends. That's my point. All weekends. All
Correct.
about the event is an emergency.
Yep.
The hell with traffic, that's only one component of it.
And maybe the 4 weekends will start being bigger because people want to get out.
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding why you limit that solution to just the focal point of the problem. It would seem to apply a broad approach to safeguard against the unknown.
And as bad as the problem was last year, we've got to hit this year with a big stick and be ready to go every weekend, regardless of what issue comes up. We've got our best solutions forward to show the community we can do this. And to be short-sighted and not have tools like this available, and then have a problem arise and go, well, maybe next year. And we hear that a lot. Maybe next year, shoulda, coulda, woulda. No, let's do it right. It's not that big a requirement. Let's have it.
Do you want a quote for these by the 19th as well?
That's everyone think.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of a firm deadline of the 19th.
We've been waiting 6 months.
And make
So-
sure that we're emphatic that it's for the whole time.
Every
not-
weekend.
Yeah, not just.
And
that
the
they
festival
specify.
should purchase them, not lease them or rent them.
Right.
So they're under their control all the time.
Again, I don't want them leased. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's what.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
When you lease them, you can't change them right away.
Can you take me off the recorder?
Off the record.
Yep. Well,
I think is a better option. And I say it's a better option because software changes. Things change. And if you lease them from year to year, you at least know you're getting up-to-date information. And you're able to.
Can you lease them and have
I
me
don't-
get control over them? Because that's the problem.
Listen, I have a note right here. Can we get signs that can change?
Kathy told me I can't change them. I have to call somebody, they dial a phone number or something, and then they change it, and that takes a half an hour or
So
more.
that's my. note.
That's the BS.
Well,
that could be
a subpar company that they're using, because
Yeah, and that could have been, then that was a few years back where maybe the software wasn't there just yet, where Festival could have an app on their phone and dial in to make those changes. So that is the one thing that I personally will take on to see if that is something that we can.
I have to upgrade the software on my computers every so often. I mean,
You do.
every company does.
but if, can I
don't
just,
agree
can I
with that.
ask the hypothetical question? Would we accept if a leasing option were possible with, a contractual capability of control? Would that be acceptable?
I think you would have to put an additional stipulation in there because those signs never showed up this year because she said by the time we called them, they were all taken. So
Well, they
you
need to
still
know
have the
that.
problem that if you don't own the sign,
Yeah.
and then they come in and say, well, I couldn't get it because it wasn't here, we wouldn't say, the stipulation has to be, if you don't have the sign, close the festival that weekend. That'll put the pressure on them.
Right.
You tell me, is it worth a few $1,000,000 or not?
Yeah,
Buy the damn sign so you can
Yeah.
be sure it's there and you know it'll work. Or if you want to say we'll lease it, but if we can't lease it because we waited too long to order it, then I guess we won't have the festival those weekends.
It's the old Harry Truman statement, the buck stops here, right? You guys have to deliver. And we've heard time and time again, we had this problem because this resource didn't show up, people didn't show up, or this, sign didn't show up. That's all on you guys. You have to show us how you're gonna do it. And if you own the signs and you've got them 30 days in advance, and you know how to program them, it's a non-issue.
Hey, Chip, we have lived on Perryville
Yes,
since
ma'am.
72.
Yep.
Anytime there's been a traffic problem, anytime we come and talk to Bob.
Yep.
And Bob miraculously has done something. Last year, we actually went to Kathy. I only went to her once. I only went to see her once. I tried to call her. I actually got her once on the phone. And the second time I got a message, I had to leave a message. And to this day, I still feel like she don't give a rip about us. She don't care. We're just a nuisance to her. Even if, I don't care if she lives on Trip. She doesn't live down Perryville and has to deal with the stupid traffic every single weekend. It's bad. You can't get out of our driveway. My husband was late 4 hours to leave for a job because we couldn't get out of our driveway. Really? People didn't care. They were snotty. Because they were like, well, we were in the car. Well, I don't really care. I live here. People don't care. And everybody's like, oh, I thoroughly agree. We probably are going to have a record year this year at the festival because now everything's open. Oh, God help us, because I'm like, it will be really bad because I feel again, like Bob said, it's just gonna go, and if we don't like it, well, it's just too bad. We're only here 7 weeks a year.
Down there, when all that stuff's going on, you guys have fixed stuff in a heartbeat. It's
Well,
bad.
again, Chip, thank you for coming here and,
Yeah, really listening to all of this.
taking the hits tonight, but I
Listen,
think
I honestly, I have I have sat on Dixie Highway directing traffic. I understand all of your concerns.
Were you there last year?
Last year,
Yeah,
when it was bad.
when an emergency vehicle couldn't get down my road to my house.
Unfortunately, that day, I was in St. Louis.
A lot better
Running
place.
the Renaissance Festival down there. But if I could go back on my records, I would show you the phone calls between me and the lieutenant from the sheriff's office, from me and the sergeant. I totally know what's going on here in Michigan, even when I'm not here. My phone is, it's either gonna be my wife, because she's working the festival, it's gonna be the lieutenant, it's gonna be somebody from the sheriff's office calling me going, what do you think, what we should do here?
Can we have your cell phone then?
You know,
I'm just suggesting, people ask for the road foreman out here, and I know if I give his number out, I'm dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Because Kathy was not taking my calls. I called her every single weekend.
So
on
just,
both days.
and thank you again for being here and for expressing, the concern of the residents. It's, it's not just our concern.
No, and the Renaissance Festival does understand their concerns.
So, and not to cut you off,
No,
Skip, but I
go
want
I
to
know
kind
we
of
gotta
keep
get
it
through
moving
this.
here. So with regard to bullet point 3, the commission's, I guess, reply to the response would be, we would want, I don't know, an assurance of purchase and or acceptable lease within, by April 26th, like,
I'll be,
Assigned
I
to-
would like it by the 19th,
or the 19th.
or
I'm sorry.
something saying it's in the works. I'm waiting for, something,
Any
something.
suggestions as to that item?
A contract with delivery dates, and to
Yeah.
Bob's point, what
If
happens?
it doesn't come
What
through-
happens if the signs don't show up? Renaissance Festival, what's your plan?
I just know they won't get them by the 19th. I mean, I don't.
No, I'm just
But
saying.
I'm just saying
If they-
something.
They could have a purchase order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
or
they have a
something.
That's
I
the
don't, we
key.
don't need to see the sign.
But again,
Yes.
they have the lease, and the lease doesn't get,
Day
Phil,
one, the signs aren't
there's
there.
gotta be
What's the
a
plan?
penalty for non-performance.
What's the plan? Yep, that needs to be
So date
stiff, stiff enough,
secure date.
because again,
please.
we're talking, the risk is ambulances not getting to people because there's cars. That's the risk. We're not, yes, there's inconvenience, but we're talking about, we have lived with a significant safety issue.
Danielle, do you have that?
Yep.
Okay, if we can move on to bullet point 4,
Yeah.
all right, bullet point 4 is a little redundant of item 2, I believe, but in any event,
The traffic study.
right. Bullet point 4 reads as follows: a professional site plan, parking, traffic, and a professional capacity study to be completed, with the festival's response being as follows. Festival will work with Row Engineering, the professional firm that created our current plan, to update the plan as appropriate. And
So
how that dovetails and, kind of,
what does Row have as of now?
I don't know what they have as of now. Row Engineering has been our engineering company
Right.
for as long as I can remember.
Right.
And I can tell you this, I do know that Kathy has been in contact with Row Engineering. Leanne is our contact person there. And they are working on getting this together already. At least the contact with Row, trying to see if we can get things updated for whatever you guys are looking for.
So
That I
we
do
can
know what's
see
happening right now.
the old plan and a new plan
You
by
should
the
have
next
the
meeting
old
would be
plan.
great.
You should have an old.
I
plan.
think we've seen the old plan. It's a couple years old, like 3 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should have an old plan.
I'm not gonna go dig in the basement, so if you can see this one, it'd be great.
so would Row, and, pardon my ignorance on this point, but would Row be the firm that would be suitable to complete the traffic study that we spoke to earlier? If they already have access to your numbers.
I think that certainly, yeah, they have traffic staff that can complete that.
Okay, well, that's encouraging. If they're already familiar with the
They're
history
very
here.
familiar with the Renaissance.
Okay,
I think they actually did the last track. I think they actually did the last traffic study.
I think so.
so Any other
Chip?
commentary on four?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Jim?
If there is a study, I'm aware of site plans, I've seen at least one. If there's a study, as well as the disaster recovery plan, please don't wait till the next meeting. Send them to our team here for distribution, because I'd like to see them. That way we can all be prepared rather than knee-jerk reaction. We get it a little bit late in the process.
And I do just want to, you mentioned disaster recovery plan. That is something that is not addressed in the four corners of the letter. It is not.
Right.
It-
That's fine.
But that is, as a commission, we would strongly encourage
Absolutely.
that also.
I think we had to put one together for the fire department. So
I think you do want to know.
yeah, for now.
So bullet point 4, I guess, just
Old plan, new plan, disaster recovery plan.
by 4/19
4/19.
or sooner if available.
Yes.
Bullet point 5, as presented, reads as follows: a contingency traffic/parking plan in the event that the original plan in place at the time of the opening of the festival should fail. Met with the following response, which reads: parking and traffic plans at any event are always fluid with the capacity to adjust and make modifications as needed based on real-life contingencies. We operate festivals and other venues in 5 states and have over 5 decades of experience in traffic and parking.
I
Can I
really,
just ask, Mr. Chairman?
I
what does
really-
that sound like?
I really didn't like that answer, and the only thing I can say is, then why did we have a problem last year? That's all I can say. We're not gonna beat a dead horse.
Yeah, some things are kind of self-evidencing. That is a gloss over response. I would agree. Bob?
No, you just made my point.
Yeah.
Yep, cool.
So I think everything tonight is touched upon a plan B, a contingency. I think it's evident that that is a recurring theme. We need to know what's, if option A fails, what's the plan B?
Well, and I would even say, 'cause it says here, parking and traffic plans at any event are always fluid with the capacity to adjust and make modifications as needed. So I would ask that they come back and say, okay, well, what does that mean? What is your, it gets back to the fact that, and they have the word plans here, so they already have plans. So come back and say, okay, share with us your current plan and share with us what you are considering capacity that these plans have or contain safety valves or safety measures in place that have the added capacity to allow for adjustments and make modifications. Show us that. Because it's
I can
obviously
give
not
you-
there, but it's.
Sample, one of the plans in the past was when we get busy, we rent Mount Holly's parking lot and then we bus them to the festival. Sounds good, except they had the buses at the parking lot
Yeah.
and not the drivers.
Not the drivers.
So when they got all jammed up, they called the drivers and said, can you get in? And the drivers called back, said, I'm stuck in traffic on Dixie Highway. I can't get there. It won't move.
Perfect
So the
example.
buses sat there, I think pretty much the whole day, never
No,
moved.
I think that was a one-time happening. We had buses.
I'm just suggesting.
I know.
That is the lack of depth into the plan itself, and that's because when we said we want buses to take that extra traffic in, somebody at the festival decides, yeah, but don't haul the drivers in because we gotta pay them unless we really need them, and by the time you call them, you've got gridlock. That's the problem. The backup plans never very robust. Barry had suggested, we could park it on the township's property and take it up the old Hall Road from the Gully Run for him and that, but I said, but you'd be in the same damn traffic jam that everybody else is in. That's the problem. And now, I don't know this year if you'll be able to use Mount Holly because the ORB park has been renting it for the summer. I don't know if they will this year. They tried to rent, I think, Aldridge's property and he wouldn't rent it to you, I believe. Then the property next to the haunted house got bought by the Fruit Brothers, right? And so I'm sitting there like, I don't really see any place else you can park it. For 1 year, they rented the property from Homer Tolliver around his excavation from his old mining site there on the opposite side of the road. What a hoo-ha that was. Cars parked all over and it's not as easy to say when you have 28 or 30,000 people showing up on a day, that if it gets backed up, well, we'll just move the traffic across the street because they can't get back across. We've tried different things. That's why people we've had mothers taking their baby strollers with babies in them and pushing them out into Dixie traffic to try and stop it. I'm like, you have to be kidding me. But that's happened because if you park them on the opposite side of the festival, they have to get across. There's no real good crosswalk area for them. So the backup plan becomes extremely critical to be well thought out. And I'm just suggesting that the commission will have to very specifically identify exactly how you want it implemented, or you're going to have buses parked somewhere with drivers parked somewhere else.
So might I suggest, and I invite, comments on this, that we solicit proposals for contingency plans from the festival by the same April 19th deadline that will give us the ability to review them, as Bob indicates, with a very fine tooth comb to ensure that they are sufficient for our standards with regard to our obligations to the residents. Would that be fair?
Absolutely.
So just contingency plan or various plans?
I would say their current parking and traffic plans that they have in place. And then what is it, or what are their response here? They have basically built-in contingency, being that they're claiming that, they have the capacity to adjust and make modifications. But what are those, what's that capacity? What's that contingency?
So what is the contingency
Yeah.
plan they have?
So
now?
what's your plan, and what's your contingency when you do have that upward spike that you've got to address in terms of traffic flow?
In other words, flush out specifically the 5, and I quote, 5 decades of experience in traffic and parking. What is that? What does that mean when it comes to, reassuring that, we're in a better place with regard to logistical preparedness? Got that? Okay. Item 6 hopefully is fairly straightforward, but we'll find out. Item 6 reads parking spaces to be painted or chalked. And the festival's response as follows. Festival has already purchased the necessary equipment to chalk lines. Our intent is to implement limited chalking this season. We have more than enough land to park cars on our site. In addition, we will emphasize the importance of parking efficiently as part of our Parker training program each event date.
I can tell you at one point in time, the plan called for them to eventually start posting the ends of the roads, post at the end of every road. And I think that never got implemented. The chalking was the request of the state police specifically. They thought that would help.
That was not a request of state police.
Pardon me?
That was not the request of the state.
What was it,
police.
Mr. Sheriff?
I'll tell you exactly when it happened. It was when I was out parking cars and I picked up the radio and it said, Jason, next year we need to chalk these lines.
You have kids parking over there.
Okay.
No, I meant
No.
the kids show them where to
I
park.
thought it was the state police told me, but
It was not.
I'll accept that you called them and told them.
I called Jason and I said, I was glad to see that because we had already had this conversation. We purchased the stuff to chalk the lines before we even closed. We just didn't get a chance to get out there and chalk it. So before we closed, we already had a chalking machine. We'd already ordered chalk. So that is going to happen this year. We are going to chalk lines. And in my opinion, again, having been out in that parking lot last year, park here, park here.
Right. They know what to do, where to do it.
Yeah. So, but part of the problem is you can only tell the people where to park. But I think prior to not having any lines, it did, I'll admit, I would look down my row and I would have, and I think I could park cars, but putting lines in and having a starting point for cars to start parking is going to be a huge help. And I also believe it might even alleviate some of our traffic flow problems out on Dixie Highway, because we're going to be able to park a little bit more efficiently than what we have in the past.
So Chip, to say that, you're going to institute, better measures to implement limited chalking. I don't know what that means exactly, but for our benefit, again, we invite specifics with regard to accomplishment of that objective. Like, how is it to be done? Are there to be, is it going to be caution tape with posting and
So we know.
limited chalking, or what specifically will demarcate each of these individual
Right.
parking spaces? How many will be demarcated? Is it compatible with your numbers? Kathy seems to, expressly indicate there's enough space to park cars on the busiest weekend. Prove that to us.
So here's what we know through the studies and looking at firearms. We know exactly how wide our parking lanes have to be. We know exactly how wide we need to have for emergency vehicles to come through. So we're gonna make sure that we adhere to all of those plans. And I think it'll be you'll be able to see where the parking is gonna take place.
Do you want a site plan of the chalk lines?
Of course,
Exactly
that
where
letter
it's gonna be
says
laid out?
some chalking.
Limited
Yeah.
chalking.
Well,
Yeah, limited.
that's why I said I don't know what the phrase limited chalking means, and it's a
I guess it less
concern.
than all.
But to Danielle's point, yes, if that's possible, if we could have like a schematic, if you will.
So again, Row Engineering has already done a parking survey of the entire site.
Yes, they did, when they came up with the calculation for the number of spots you had, but I think that was hypothetically, if you laid them all out, utilizing them, what happened, but like you said, with this past year, you had what, 8.5 acres that didn't get used. Because there was nobody directing them to it, I guess, or whatever,
And we
so.
also, we've made some internal changes with the sheriff's office as far as putting deputies in positions to help move the cars along, to get them back into where we need to get them parked. We're gonna continue that again this year, utilizing them mainly in the south entrance is where we posted deputies along the road with traffic people so that you didn't have the person just decide to go and park wherever they wanted to. There was a deputy there basically to corral them back in the line and get them going. And as I said, first when I was out there parking cars, and you would always have one that wandering sheep that just ran off, and I would confront them. Did you not see the other cars in front of you?
So historically, has the parking been staffed by Renaissance Festival volunteers, employees, like their own kind of staffers, or has this been subcontracted to a vendor?
We put it out to, well, we had many years ago, we did have a gentleman, a vendor who brought in people to park it. We have also used a professional parking crew in the past.
Do you know here tonight what the plan is for this season?
I believe the plan going into this year is we recruited a volunteer group to do that.
Is this students again? I'm
I'm
only saying, there's been a potpourri of trials, okay? I'm not saying this is the case, and I'm just pointing out, at one point in time, they hired a bunch of high school students, okay? And as I said, when you put a cute 18-year-old girl on the road that says, stop, you can't turn in here yet, and this guy in his big 4x4 truck says, screw you, and goes in, that's why you guys got hired, because they don't say it to them with a gun at the same, okay? We've had different kinds of parking, and I think the last time, all of them, I believe this past year, a significant number of the people never showed up for parking, which was part of the problem.
We had some
And volunteer
COVID issues.
makes that sound sketchy.
Well,
I was out last night, I don't.
Because there
feel
are
comfortable.
companies that do it.
Right, and again, this is a good year to put our best foot forward and show we got this thing fixed.
And that should be a part of the overall plan in terms of what are you going to do to address increasing that, basically that influx of flow to keep things smooth and avoid the backup. So that would be a part of addressing that in terms of your staffing and parking. And to me, if it is a volunteer group, well, then that to me makes the chalking that much more important, where you want to make sure you're chalking the whole parking area, not just limited. So, I mean, I would like to see just the chalking plan, what is going to get accomplished for this coming season in terms of that parking area. And then also too, a little bit more detail in terms of the staffing as it pertains to directing traffic in and out, or directing the traffic in to get parked. How is that going to be accomplished? How is it going to be improved from last year? Because just like what Bob was saying, darn well it's going to be a bumper crop this coming season, now that COVID's behind us. And there has to be anticipation in place or some kind of foresight in place to understand that you are likely going to have above average attendance this coming season. So you're going to have to step up your game from last season.
Thank you, Angela. So I think with regard to the chalking and the demarcation of the actual parking spaces and rows, there's a staffing element that goes with that. And what is planned? Is it volunteers? Is it employees? Is it
I don't know
vendors?
the answer to that question.
Well, we'd
I'll
like,
get it for you.
okay, perfect. Danielle, are we okay with bullet point 6? Okay.
Yep.
And then finally, bullet point 7, which read as follows: a functional event PA system as suggested by MSP. Met with the following response: festival has the means to reach everyone on our site through a combination of electronic personal messaging and amplified messages from our various stages located throughout the site. We will work with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office to have emergency protocols in place. So
Would this fold into the disaster
Tell you what
plan?
that means, because it's my idea.
It should. Question though, Chip, if, pulling this out of my dairy, or if I'm the farthest parking spot, how do I hear if the only source of noise or speakers?
I think the MSP, I think that Sergeant, his suggestion of the PA system was based on the fact that cars were parking on Perryville Road.
Yes.
And so his suggestion was not to publicly address the parking lot. It was to publicly address the festival site itself, to tell people, hey, if you're parked on Perryville Road, your car's getting towed.
Yes, that is. what it
That
is.
is where the PA system comes into play. It has nothing to do with the parking lot. And I can tell you what the plan that I have proposed, that's why it says Oakland County Sheriff's Office, is we do have multiple stages around the site. People, the entertainers have microphones, we have loudspeakers. They can get on those and address if we have some issues that need to be taken care of. That is also part of our emergency plan for seeking shelter in case whatever's going on. My suggestion with as far as the sheriff's office is, if we need to make an emergency announcement, that we position a patrol car on each side of the festival grounds. We have built-in PA systems inside of our vehicles. And we just have the deputies make that announcement as to whatever direction we need people to take. We'll give the sheriff's office that, whatever we need them to say, we'll have them say that for us. We can also purchase blowhorns that members of staff can have handy. That if we need to go out and make an announcement, I can step right out my office down the ramp and stand in the middle of the festival with a blowhorn and make an announcement that needs to be made. So.
So with regard to the, I guess, the compliance aspect of that, is it, I'm assuming there's some written agreement or something in place between the festival and the county with regard to deployment of deputies
So,
at the event?
Here's a nice part. I work for the sheriff's department. I'm a liaison for the sheriff's department. As crazy as it sounds, what I tell them to do, they do. We do have a written contract with the sheriff's office, as Bob is aware, because we used to actually run, many years ago, the contract actually ran through Groveland Township with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. So we do have a long-standing contract with them, and I am the liaison. It's kind of weird for me sometimes because I have a lieutenant standing there who's my boss Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday, I get to tell him what to do. So if I say I need to.
Well, very nicely, right?
Yeah, so if I need a patrol car to go down to the the 300 foot area by the joust field and make an announcement over the PA system, he's gonna send a patrol car down to the 300 foot area and make an announcement. I don't need to have an agreement with them. They already know what Chip says to them is the way it's gonna be.
And you're available at all times, so they can just wait.
Absolutely.
I thought you were.
I am out of town, but I can be home.
So
This year I'm not. I'm going out of town.
is the county then compensated directly by the festival? Yeah. So there's an assurance that those deputies will be there at the appointed day and hours. 13.
Then can you please tell them to let us turn into our road?
That was a big issue. Now, I was arguing with them face to face.
I swear to God, I never thought I swear to God that I did.
You were telling me I can't run on my road, or I
So-
can't get on my road.
So Chip, with regard to the PA system and the utilization of the deputies. Again,
I'll put it in writing.
correct. That's really what we need. Specifics with regard to scheduling, availability, and just an assurance that, deputies won't be working 12s and then expected to show up and not want to be there. So kind of calling off,
Well, see that, and that's so you can't, the agreement, well, the sheriff's office will never be short staffed.
Right.
Because they can't, we have a contract that says we're gonna have X amount of people every day, and it breaks down to 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and then 10 deputies. 2 sergeants are roaming, they're also out directing traffic with the deputies, making decisions and helping us adjust the traffic as it's coming and going, so.
The number they contract for is determined by the sheriff. It wasn't originally. But then I found out at Pine Knob that Pine Knob makes the sheriff go to Pine or DT or whatever the hell they call it.
That concert place.
The concert place, and they tell them how many deputies they want to work at the concert place. And that's how many they get. So when I found that out, I came back and we said,
Yeah, the
"Are you-
DT is based
you're
on the
lieutenant?
show itself.
How many do you want? That's what you're getting. They used to get, I think they used to get 6 or 8.
6 to 8, depending on the week.
but it's all conditioned upon availability based upon,
No,
They don't have a choice.
I don't want to, this is not really to be beaten it to death, but part of the problem is, as you probably know, all police departments, all sheriff's departments, all MSP departments, they're all short-staffed because nobody wants to be a cop now with defunding police and stuff, right? And I've talked to the new deputy undersheriff, yeah. And, and he said, we're typically 80 or 90 short every day. About 40 of them were COVID cases, he said, and the other one is they can't fill the jobs. So what happens is they have a contract here that has to be fulfilled. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Chip, but I think what happens is there are some guys that I think kind of like to work it.
There's some.
And then there's some that have worked double shifts someplace else and they come along and say, oh, you're not going home yet. You got to go work the festival this weekend. Understandably, they're in a bad mood. So
Well,
they tend to be.
They work an 8-hour shift and now they get forced out the festival.
Yeah.
for-
And that is where some of the personality issues flare up. It's unfortunate, but it's systemic to the fact that there are not enough police everywhere. And they're fulfilling their contract. And sometimes when Kathy finds out, she tries to coach them. I think, and you gotta do this. And she periodically gets some of them eliminated. But I'm just telling you, that's not a problem we're going to be able to make go away overnight. There's just not enough cops around.
so
Fair?
but the functional PA system, is it tied directly to the availability of deputies? I mean, if that's the case, that's a problem.
Oh, no.
No?
No, they
Because we
they'll
have
fill the
every-
order.
every
They have to go and
deputy-
tell 4 guys, you're not going home this
Every
week.
deputy has a patrol car. There will always be,
Okay,
there will always be the number of slotted deputies that are supposed to be a festival. They will be there. The only way that that would ever change is just a hypothetical. At 7 o'clock in the morning, it's pouring down rain and you're looking at the radar and it's gonna be pouring down rain all day long. We may, you're welcome. We may cut back 1 or 2 if the guy's being forced to be there. We may cut back 1 or 2 and say, hey, you know what? it's gonna be pouring down rain all day. We're not gonna have coverage. So why don't you go home and get some sleep? But other than that, if it's a sunny, beautiful day, there are gonna be 13 deputies positioned on the Renaissance Festival property. So patrol cars
Gotcha.
are always there. We have them, even though the lieutenant brings out his patrol car, so his car is just sitting by my office. And I can jump in his car and go park it and make an announcement if needed, so. But I'll write all that for you.
A quick question for you, Chip. Is there any way you could have a patrol car on DC highway up on the side to stop the other people from coming down and cutting it?
And I would,
Cause an issues
I
there?
would love to be able to say yes. The problem is where we have positioned the deputies is to help facilitate getting people into the festival and getting them parked. And I understand your concern.
I'm the first house right off of Dixie.
I know, and I understand your concern about getting in and off of Perryville Road. You know, in the past, we gave you a sticker.
Yeah.
We gave you something that said, I live on Perryville Road. And I was like, yep, I think I will talk to Kathy and see if we can't re-implement that again this year. And believe me,
Well, we've had some of them, it doesn't matter whether we have it in the window or not.
I've had many.
You have to get a scarlet brand, you know, right?
I've
There you
had-
go. You know, how many times, you step outside the door, and here's a constant blasting of the horn, because somebody's cutting in on somebody else.
Oh,
And all day long, we can almost predict when the ambulance is coming back. It's slightly afternoon, sure enough, here it comes, here's the ambulance coming. And it's,
You know, just
the
can't-
noise from the festival is bad enough, let alone hearing all the honking, and then at the end of the day, all everybody peeling out, and it's actually really annoying. But I know they're trying to run a business.
And it's, as far as that's, the fair road is actually in the sheriff's department orders that all residents living on Perryville Road are to be given priority. to get in. So it's just a matter of getting those deputies to adhere to that, right? So it will be addressed.
Kathy tells us all the time that she talks to you guys, she talks to you guys, you don't let residents down, but then you don't let us residents down.
So Danielle, do we have a sufficient record with regard to bullet point 7?
Yeah, I guess.
That's not very
The
convincing.
contract through MSP agreeing, I guess, is good, but there's really not much. I mean, if there's no, just say that there'll always be 13 officers there with 13 PA systems in their car, I guess. Is that what we're saying? Because that's really the only guarantee we have is the 13.
It seems like with the built-in systems in place,
This
and
is the PA system, this is really a non-issue and small potatoes versus everything else that we got going on. This is an easy fix. This is a very easy fix for us.
Yes.
just flush it out, add it into the other elements of the response by April 19th.
There was a tornado last week and the response time, I guess, was a lot of kudos that brought to them for their response.
At an event out of state.
No, last year, there was a tornado warning.
Yeah.
And to,
That was the last weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
and
remember that.
just, it's not here, but in Florida, we have our show going on there right now. And 2 weeks ago, we had just a terrible, almost hurricane windstorm come through. Everybody did a great job down there, making sure that everyone was sheltered in place. Festival did an excellent job. Again, the safety of the patrons and the employees that were there. Believe it or not, those people still came out, and that storm came in at like 9:30 in the morning, we opened at 10. There were people standing in my line at the box office wanting to buy tickets. And my staff looked at them and said, "You're crazy. Go take shelter, come back when the storm passes." So I mean, it's the one thing that we do well is making sure that they are safe once they're inside.
Good, very good to hear. Okay, so I guess with that, we've kind of addressed the points of concern and the response to the points of concern and the anticipated ability of the commission to reply with the deadline of April 19th in place for all of the items we've agreed upon tonight. So is there any other comments? I don't want to, it's getting late in the evening, but if the residents have anything to say?
I just got one question. I know you gotta do the planning and everything of the extra roads and stuff. Would that be directed away from Curry Road? Well, the entrance is almost basically straight across Curry Road. If you had an entrance or exits, like in the north corner of the parking lot and.
That was one of the sites.
That's one of the.
But again, I think the study will tell them where you need to put it, you know.
I think he brings a fair question, though. As Tim mentioned, you can put in a request, even with the traffic study, to say, hey, how can we minimally, maybe leaving the current egress, wherever they are, maybe not worrying about another road, but what's our capacity now? What do we need to do right now to make this work? And that was something that Tim brought up. That is an option for us to request when you go for that traffic study. How could they make this work as is without worrying about additional roads? Now, whether that's feasible, I don't know, but I think.
After 20 years, the only way that works without an additional road is to limit daily attendance.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 20 some years, and when you have 18,000 people at the festival, it's a walk in the park. You'll think nobody's there.
Well, and
When you have 23 or 25,000, it still works good. You get to about 28,000 a day, it starts falling apart.
About 25.
Yeah. And by 30, it's just an absolute mess. And so the only way you can fix what's there without any changes is to say, to move that traffic to those other weekends.
Just, I'm going to ask this openly, Bob, because you mentioned it. Does the commission have the ability to put restrictions on the permitting of the festival?
I think
such
you
as
can
that?
put whatever restrictions you want on there, as long as you and Holly Township hang together on those issues. A part of the problem in the past was, I've gone to Holly before George was there. And they do their festival permit differently than we do. And since they've had none of the traffic problem, frankly, put yourself in their position. Everything looks okay here, you know? And it's only because I think I have a pretty good working relationship with George that I've been able to say, we gotta fix this. I get all the problems, and these people kind of, and I offhandedly joke with me, yeah, I know you get all the calls. I don't get any, Bob. But he wants to fix it. And so there is an improved spirit of cooperation. And most of the discussions we've had have been, we're going to do this together. The list is going to be consistent through both. They may have something they want to, because I know NACA does the fire stuff inside there, and we really don't see that. And so you've shown them your disaster plan, but we've never seen it because they basically do that. I think there's an inclination now to have both communities looking at the full picture of the festival and making sure that whatever they need, we're cognizant of, whatever we need, they're cognizant of, and agreeing to do the same thing. At least that's the way it's, I would say it's been going since October when I set the first meeting up.
Well, I think it's fair to say we're all eagerly looking forward to, the festival's response by April 19th, be shared with Holly Township most likely, and we can address it collectively going forward. So,
And I do think, I know it'll be in writing, but I do believe that Kathy should be back in town.
I was gonna ask.
April
that.
15th.
Yeah, I think she said the 15th.
Yeah, because we're doing, we have our event. We close on the 3rd, we're doing another event. We close in 2 weeks, and we're doing another event, a one-day event, following weekend in Florida. And then I believe she'll probably be back in town shortly thereafter. So yeah, probably around the 15th.
Yeah, I think
So
she
should be
emails
able
on
to
the
attend the 19th,
well, I
or
would,
the 26th meeting, I'm sorry.
we appreciate you being here tonight,
No
Chip. I
problem.
think you can expect, or Kathy can expect, that there'll be another written
Yep.
reply coming from myself on behalf of the commission to kind of affirm what has been discussed and agreed upon tonight. So there's no, I guess, miscommunications with regard to our expectations as to what we expect on April 19th. Fair enough. And Jim, I was just gonna, actually, at this time, I think the agenda's been completed. And I would welcome a motion to close tonight's meeting.
I think we should motion first. All of these things that we discussed will be our next step going forward. I think we should make that a motion.
There's the motion. I second it.
Jim had something to say.
Yes. Okay.
She makes the motion. Who would second?
I'll second it.
So the motion as stated would be for,
All this, my items 1 through 7 that we discussed and agreed upon with Chip will be all completed by the 19th, a week prior to the next meeting,
19th of April.
April.
Correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion
I'll
carried.
make that sound a
and
lot prettier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jim?
I just have, I know it's late, I have some comments and a couple of questions. So, take advantage, your whole team, I can't speak. This may require some special meetings to pull this out. We have the team has an awful lot of work ahead of them. Please take advantage of that vehicle. We will need the traffic management plan and anything as early as you can get to it, because remember, we might engage a subject matter expert to double check what's going on, because we're not experts. So that will help. Couple of more things. Did I understand, Chip, a great day for you guys is 25,000 people?
That's when it starts.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a high human day.
That's a high human day, yes.
Okay, so help me, I'm not leading on like an attorney or anything, sorry.
Sustained.
So
They have had days hired.
I have spent,
Oh, we have, to Bob's defense, yes, we have had higher days since 25.
But that's where the breakdown kind of starts.
Yeah.
When it gets to 27 or 8, it's a mess.
Bob, let's let Jim finish.
I'm sorry.
so I'm a fixture at Pine Knob. I've never recognized these issues. So I'm of the opinion this can be solved. So I'm optimistic about it, but I promise you guys have a daunting task.
Well, I will say to you guys, I have had conversations with the owner, one-on-one conversations with the owner. And it is his wish and his will to do exactly what you guys are asking the festival to do to the best of his knowledge.
Heart attack.
Ability.
Oh, I'm having a heart attack.
Because he doesn't, this is his business. You were right, Ms. McKay, this is a business, and he knows that in order to continue doing business, he's gonna have to make some changes that need to take place. You know, Jim, Mr. Pearson, Kathy, the Minnesota administrative staff, myself, are all willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that that happens. So, I mean, some of this stuff, I think, some of it is easy to take care of. Calling and getting signs, easy to take care of. Chalking a field, easy to take care of. PA system, easy to take care of. I think everything else falls around the traffic study and getting cars in and off the Dixie Highway. And I think as a group, there has to be a way that we can resolve that.
Agreed.
The only other comment that I have on my notes is third or fourth to the last paragraph of the letter talks about a little bit startled that there were some past due balances. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the letter.
So I read the whole thing a couple times.
So
They're all paid.
and I get that. As a business owner, if I had a check out there for 6 months uncashed, I'd make a call and say, did you receive it? So just saying, also as the trustee component here, 2 more things and then I'm finally done. I'm going to suggest we want our fees up front now, or portion of them. And then the only other thing that's on my list, you guys, is that in your plan, I'd like to see an independent third-party audit of what goes on. I say this with respect. I don't trust the ability of the Renaissance Festival to report accurately back to us.
What do you,
So when the plan is in place and it says you need so many humans to direct traffic, I'd like somebody to count that, that's independent, into whatever the plan, whatever measures are in the plan, that there's somebody there to say that they are living up to their expectations. So if there's a failure, we'll all know why. We need some data, and I'm sorry, I feel we have to ask for that, but this has been so abysmal. Independent of the people talking to me personally, we've got to ensure quiet enjoyment for the people, and I know you get that. So we're just going to be a little bit hard until this has a consistent 5 year, it's running like a machine. And then we'll have beers.
Coca-Cola's at the pub.
At the pub. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you sincerely. So at this time,
Can I make a motion that we adjourn, y'all?
second, carried and approved. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Danielle?